The letter wasn't addressed to me. It wasn't even opened. It had been hidden for 43 years, and one sentence inside destroyed everything I thought I knew about my family. The day after my grandfather's funeral, I volunteered to clean out his old house. Everyone else wanted to leave as quickly as possible. "It's just junk," my uncle said. "Throw everything away." But something didn't feel right. Grandpa never kept junk. He kept memories. The attic was covered in dust, old furniture, boxes filled with faded photographs, a broken rocking chair. Nothing unusual, until I noticed a loose floorboard. It looked newer than the others. I knelt down, pried it open with a screwdriver. Inside was a small metal box, locked. There was no key, so I carefully forced it open. Inside were only 3 things: an old pocket watch, a black and white photograph, and a sealed envelope, yellow with age. Across the front, in neat handwriting, it read, "To my grandson, if you ever find this." My heart started racing. Grandpa had written this years before I was born. With shaking hands, I opened the envelope. The first line made me freeze. "If you're reading this, it means I never found the courage to tell you the truth in person." I kept reading. "The man you called your father isn't your biological father." I stopped breathing. "No," I whispered. "This can't be real." I read the sentence again and again. The words never changed. I felt like the floor had disappeared beneath me. My father? The man who raised me? The man who taught me everything wasn't my biological father? Then why had Grandpa hidden this? I turned the page. There was more, much more. Grandpa wrote, "The truth about your real father is far more dangerous than you can imagine." My hands began to shake. Dangerous? What did that mean? Just then, I heard footsteps on the attic stairs. Someone else had come into the house. A voice called out, "Daniel!" It was my uncle. But when he saw the open metal box, the color drained from his face. He whispered, "You weren't supposed to find that." My uncle froze. His eyes locked onto the open metal box. For a moment, neither of us said a word. Then he quietly asked, "How much did you read?" I held up the letter. "Enough." His shoulders dropped. I was afraid this day would come. I stepped toward him. "Tell me the truth. Who was my real father?" He didn't answer. Instead, he walked to the attic window, looking out into the rain. "I promised your grandfather I'd never talk about it." I shook my head. That promise ended the moment he died. My uncle slowly turned around. "There are things you're better off not knowing." I laughed bitterly. "You think I can just forget what I read? My whole life changed 5 minutes ago." He closed his eyes. "I know." He picked up the old photograph from the box. It showed Grandpa standing beside a young man, tall, dark hair, confident smile. The two of them looked almost identical. "That's him," my uncle whispered. "His name was Michael Carter." I stared at the picture. "My father?" He nodded. "Your biological father." "What happened to him?" Silence. A long, painful silence. Finally, he disappeared. "What do you mean, disappeared?" "No one ever saw him again." I frowned. "People don't just disappear." My uncle looked directly into my eyes. "He did. The police searched for months. There was no body, no evidence, nothing. It was as if he had vanished into thin air." I looked back at the letter. There had to be more. I unfolded the final page. A small folded note slipped onto the floor. Neither of us had noticed it before. I picked it up. On the front, only 3 words: "Don't trust anyone." My heart started pounding. I slowly opened it. Inside was a hand-drawn map. Nothing else, no explanation. just a red X marked deep in the woods about 50 miles outside town. My uncle's face went completely white. "No," he whispered, "it still exists." "What exists?" He grabbed my arm. "You have to burn that map." I pulled away. "Why?" "Because if someone finds out you have it, they'll come looking for you." Just then, a black SUV slowly stopped outside the house. Neither of us recognized it. Two men in dark suits stepped out. One of them looked toward the attic window and pointed directly at me. The two men looked up at the attic window. One of them slowly removed his sunglasses. He pointed directly at me. "They found us." My uncle's voice was barely a whisper. "They're here." I looked at him. "Who are they?" He didn't answer. Instead, he grabbed the metal box. "Forget everything. We're leaving." I blocked the doorway. "I'm not going anywhere until you tell me the truth." He looked me straight in the eyes. "For 28 years, I've been trying to keep you alive." A loud knock echoed through the house. Bang! Then another. Bang! A calm voice called from downstairs. "Mr. Walker, we'd like to ask you a few questions." My uncle didn't move. "They're lying. They already know you're here." Another knock, louder this time. "They're coming in." My uncle pulled a small key from his pocket. I hoped I'd never have to use this. He walked to an old wooden wardrobe, moved it aside. Behind it was a narrow, hidden door. I stared in disbelief. There was a room behind this wall? He nodded. "Your grandfather built it himself." Inside, the room was no bigger than a closet. Dust covered everything. On a small desk sat an old cassette recorder. Beside it, a stack of notebooks and one sealed envelope. Across the front it read, "For Daniel only." My hands shook again. Another letter. Before I could open it, the front door downstairs burst open. Heavy footsteps filled the house. "They're inside." My uncle handed me the envelope. "Read it later. No matter what happens, don't let them take it." We slipped out through a narrow passage behind the attic wall. It led outside, hidden behind thick bushes. As we reached my car, I looked back. The two men in suits were already searching the house. One of them held up the photograph from the attic. The other spoke into a radio. Then they both looked directly toward us. One of them shouted, "There!" My uncle jumped into the passenger seat. "Drive!" I slammed the gas pedal. The black SUV roared to life behind us. Within seconds, they were chasing us down the empty country road. And as I glanced into the rearview mirror, I realized something terrifying. There wasn't just one SUV anymore. There were three. The black SUVs closed in fast. One behind us, one beside us, one blocking the road ahead. "There!" my uncle shouted. "Take the old bridge." I turned the wheel sharply. The tires screamed across the wet pavement. For a second, I thought we'd lose them. We didn't. The chase ended in an abandoned sawmill. The road simply stopped. I slammed on the brakes. "We're trapped." My uncle looked at me. "No." He reached into his jacket, pulled out the sealed envelope. "This is why they've been searching for your family." He handed it to me. "Open it." Inside, there was a single USB drive and a handwritten note. "Daniel, if you're reading this, they finally found us. Your biological father wasn't a criminal. He was a journalist. He uncovered corruption involving powerful businessmen and politicians. Before he disappeared, he copied every piece of evidence onto this drive." I looked at the USB. "So he's—" My uncle lowered his head. "We never found him." The SUVs surrounded us. 4 men stepped out. One of them raised his hands. "We're not here to hurt you. We only want the drive." I laughed bitterly. That's exactly what someone would say. The man sighed. "You have no idea what's on it." He took one careful step forward. "Give it to us." My uncle whispered, "Don't." I tightened my grip. Instead of handing it over, I snapped the USB drive in half. Silence. Complete silence. The suited men stared in disbelief. Then I smiled. "You came too late." One of the men shouted, "You idiot!" I reached into my pocket, pulled out my phone. "Were you looking for this?" The real USB drive was already uploading its contents to the cloud. Progress 100%. My uncle looked at me. "You switched them?" I nodded. "I learned one thing from Grandpa. Always have a backup." 2 weeks later, the evidence became public. News channels around the world covered the story. Several powerful officials resigned. Multiple arrests were made. And for the first time in nearly 30 years, my biological father's name was cleared. He hadn't disappeared because he was guilty. He disappeared because he refused to stay silent. I returned to Grandpa's attic one last time. The metal box was empty. The letters were gone. But I left something behind. A small handwritten note beneath the loose floorboard. It read, "The truth may stay hidden for years, but it never stays buried forever." Sometimes the greatest inheritance isn't money or property. It's the courage to do what's right.